To make this wreath, you will need a gold-ish wire wreath form so it stays hidden in the background. This one came from the Dollar Tree. You will need some wire. I'm using a 26 gauge wire from the floral section at Hobby Lobby. You will need 4-inch cable ties, and they can be found at hardware stores, Walmart, and online, just to name a few. You will also need corn husks. I got mine at the grocery store where the tacos are found. The husks are used for making tamales, which I didn't know that. You may want to check online for the best prices because I just found that Walmart has them $1 cheaper than what I paid. Not only look at those prices, but look at that weight too. You don't want to pay more for less. I took them out of the package, put them in a container so I can pick and choose the ones I want to use. The ones that are wide, you're going to want to rip down the middle so that they're about 1.5 inches wide strips. Take 3 of them and kind of scrunch them together at the pointy ends. Wrap the wire around them a few times and snip it. Group another set of 3, but using the wide ones instead. I wanted to have narrow and wide, but you can make yours however you want. I laid them out in groups of 2 to make sure that I made even amounts of the narrow and the wide. I started off making 5 sets per section of the wreath, knowing I could go back and add more if I needed to. Once you have the sets made, you can then attach them to the form with the cable ties. I found it easier to put the tie on first, then stick the husk through the tie where it's above the wire and tighten it on the back. I only attached them to the 2 middle rings, and I staggered them and alternated between the narrow and the wide. In the end, I did go back and make a few more sets to get the fullness that I wanted. Once they're all on there, take a pair of dikes or scissors and clip the tails off. The ties hold them tight enough to keep them in place, but not so tight that you can't slide them to adjust them. You can totally skip this next step, but I used a pair of wire cutters to remove the inner ring because I didn't want it to be seen. I clipped right along the base of the ring and used a pair of needle nose pliers to pop the wires right off. And that's it. You can add to it if you want, but I love it just the way it is. For this garland, you will need to soak the corn husks in warm water for a few minutes just to soften them up. As you can see, it makes them a little more flexible. You will need to tear each husk into about 1-inch strips and then cut the strips in half. If you want more of a pointy end, you will need to cut each end with scissors to get the shape you want. And I tried to keep them all close to the same size, which was probably about 3 inches in length. After cutting a handful, I measured out how long I wanted my jute string to be and cut it. It all depends on the size of your mantle. Mine is 5 foot, so I cut mine to 6 foot to make sure I have plenty. Thread the jute through a tapestry needle and knot the other end. And I double knotted to make sure that it didn't slip through. Then poke the needle through the center and pull the husk to the end. If they're not damp when you poke the needle through, they're most likely going to tear. It comes together faster if you layer a few. I would suggest working with a handful at a time so that they don't dry before you get them strung on. 4,700 years later, I was still working on it, and I found that it's better to go ahead and fan out the layers before putting them on, so when I go back to adjust them, I don't have as much to do. I used every bit of the corn husk in the package. I'm telling you, there was nothing left. It took every bit of that package to make my wreath and the garland. When you get to the end, tie another knot. It turned out to be 4.5 foot, which worked out. To add to this garland, I made a simple one to go underneath. Get some faux leather leaves from the Dollar Tree and cut the stems off. Take some tiny clothespins and clip on to where the stems were. Hang a jute string below the corn husk garland and clip on the leaves. I spaced them out evenly, and I clipped a leaf to each end where the two strings meet. It added to the length of the garland. And I love this. Y'all have a good one, and thanks for watching.